Hi, my name is Anna Winkler, and I'm a software engineer at HashiCorp. I work on the Terraform CLI experience team, and today I'm happy to talk with you about how to get up and running tests in go-tfe. Well, you might be wondering what go-tfe is, or maybe you're here because you actually would like to run tests in go-tfe and it's been kind of a struggle. Well, this is our Go client for Terraform Cloud, TFC, and Terraform Enterprise, TFE. There are a few assumptions and prerequisites that'll help you in this talk. So first off, it'll help you if you're already set up for Go development on your laptop. I'm using a MacBook Pro, and all of the commands today will be for a Mac. There are similar things that you can do on other systems, and that's unfortunately out of the scope of this talk. I'm also assuming that you've already cloned the go-tfe repository. So you may have issued something like a git clone and then the URL of the repository there. Next, I assume that you've already got an editor for editing Go code. So I myself like to use Visual Studio Code, but there are lots of other editors out there that you can choose. And finally, you'll need access to a TFE or a TFC instance. We need this to run the go-tfe tests because go-tfe is a library and it needs to work with an API for the tests to work. So if you don't have your own Terraform Enterprise instance, what you can do is navigate to app.terraform.io and sign up for a free Terraform Cloud account. Once you do this, you'll be able to create a token that you can use to run tests. And now the tests. Here I'm showing part of our tests documentation from the go-tfe repository. So we can also navigate to this tab here where I'm showing the repository. So we do describe how to set up the environment variables. So the first thing we're going to need to do is to install Endchain, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. Next, we've got a helper script to set up environment variables, or you can set the variables up yourself using Endchain commands. There are two environment variables that are required to run the go-tfe tests. We need to have the address or the URL of a Terraform Cloud or Enterprise instance to use for testing. And next, we'll need to have a token to connect to that instance. So let's first make sure that we've got Endchain installed. Endchain is a tool that I like to use to set up environment variables. You can choose something else, and you actually don't need to use any tool if you like. But I've found that it's pretty handy to set up the environment variables, since in this case, we need to have two. So if you don't already have it installed on your system, run brew install endchain to install the tool. I've already done that on my laptop, so I'm not going to show you that part. Now, once you've installed endchain, let's go over to my iTerm window here. I'm in the directory where I've cloned my go-tfe, and we've got a helper script here in go-tfe that helps set up the test environment variables. So it's called setup test envars. Run this script, gives you a little helpful information here. It also checks for the presence of endchain. So if it doesn't find it, it'll tell you you need to go install it. So the first thing we need to think about is the namespace that we want to use for these environment variables. You might use something like TFC or even TFC prod. So whatever you want to choose is fine. We have a default here of go-tfe, but let's use TFC prod today. And now here, we'll enter in the address or the URL. And now we'll put in our token. And obviously it needs to be a valid token. This one is just an example. Hit enter, and now there's a prompt for two of the other environment variables. These are not required, so we're going to skip them today and just focus on the address and the token. So I'm going to hit enter and skip GitHub token, and I'm going to hit enter again and skip GitHub policy set identifier. Great. So now we've got our environment variables set in that namespace. So if we were to run this command, and let's grep for the TFE one specifically, we'll see that these values are available in our environment. Well, now that we've got our environment variables set up, let's say that we found an issue in go-tfe. So I'm going to open up the code with my editor, and I'm looking at the organization tags integration test. So maybe we found something in the organization tags that we'd like to submit a pull request for, and we want to first run the tests. Well, this is where we can use what we just added with Endchain to run those tests. So we're going to say Endchain, and then the namespace that we just entered in, so prod. And now this is just like running any sort of test in Go. So we'll add verbose and integration for our tags, and then we're going to run the organization tags tests. So we'll hit enter here, and here we go. Look at that. So we can see that we ran all of these tests and they all passed. So that's great. Now, the nice thing about using something like Endchain is that we can set up namespaces for other environments. So for example, if you have a staging environment available to you, you can set up a namespace called TFC staging and run those same tests. And we see that those tests also pass. Great. Wonderful. And there you go. We're up and running tests in go-tfe. Thank you so much.